this is Governor Bobber. Like, good day, doctors.
George Allen here. Good day, doctors.
Good Friday evening, everyone. It is April 29th, and it's still going down to 30 degrees in the evening.
Yeah, isn't this weather kind of weird? I mean, actually, when I was watching the news this morning at the gym, they were saying April overall, it's only down about a degree on the average for normal. But boy, these last few days when we're getting into the 30s, and I didn't have any frost on my windshield, but there was frost on the top of my car this morning. Now I am talking, 4:30 in the morning, but still I'm like, why is this happening in April? Then again, if you lived in Utah and Colorado and some other places, it happens. And that didn't it snow in Cumberland like a week or so ago?
Yes. Neil Parrott had 4 inches of snow on the ground at his house in Hagerstown.
Yeah. And, so I was like,
it's the way I look at it is, usually by this time I've got plants in the ground in the garden. I haven't even had a chance to put them in because, well, I haven't had the gardener put them in, but it's one of those things like, who has the, I don't trust the weather. Excuse me.
It's all that climate change. You just can't count on anything anymore.
I know. Climate change. And they talk about, here's the thing, climate change, so much for global warming is what I'd like to say. And by the way, Fairfax County is doing a dinner on May 25th. It's a Wednesday, and their speaker is Governor Ehrlich.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I'm thinking, I need to call up Gary, and we should all go to show the support for our governor. And I guess they took a page.
Is he going to talk about Trump and his book, or just some other things too?
Probably his book. He's a Lincoln Day dinner speaker, or Reagan Day dinner. I don't think they call them Lincoln Day dinners in Virginia.
Yeah, but, I don't even know what that is anymore in Montgomery County, Dwight.
We haven't had one in 3 years.
And
the last one we had, if you recall, we had a pathetic 136 people show up for the dinner, considering when we had Governor Gilmore, we were well over 225, 230 because we ran out of food, because that went into even our area of overage. George Allen, we had about 227, 230 for George Allen. We had, for Matt Schlapp, we had around 225, 200, 220, 225, and we would get about 220, 225, 230 people at our Lincoln Day dinners, and not even getting over 200 with the sitting lieutenant governor. That's something wrong there. When the sitting lieutenant governor doesn't garner more than 136 people, that says something, about, the organization and stuff like that. Why couldn't you sell tickets? Because nobody wants to make phone calls.
Yeah, that's part of it. But I will say this. I mean, as much as I have respect for the lieutenant governor, not a dynamic guy. And so it is hard to sit there and listen to him speak. So
they had more for Larry Eagleburger. Remember that?
Yeah, well, that was not pleasant.
Escape from Insomnia dinner is what I like to call that one, and they had over 220 people at that dinner too.
Yeah, I mean, and
I'm not sure how many of those people are still awake at the end of the dinner.
Exactly. But I mean, the way the committees evolved is just that as they've distanced themselves from people like you, they also lose people with the connections to get them, decent speakers. So then they wind up with, making some bad decisions about who should do what and everything like that. I mean,
And it's like Katja Bullock, who I think was probably the biggest mistake these people made was when she was thinking of applying. They said, "Hey, good luck with that. We're pushing someone else." It's like you don't do that. That's just I know a few people. I mean, Katja knows a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, does Mark have any desire to serve on the Central Committee? Is he going to run, or
He's running. Yeah, he's running. But I tell you,
he's running at large?
no, he's running in 16.
16? Okay.
Which has a primary, competitive primary, as does the at large, and 15 has a primary, 17 has a primary, 39 I think has a primary too.
Yeah.
And
19 I think is just right? I mean, I think
yeah.
Yeah.
And you got some great new people like Frank Nice and Bob Fesher. The guy's last name Bob. He lives in Leisure, great guy. And Frank, Dr. Nice, awesome guy. We need to get him on direct line actually to talk about his campaign.
Whatever happened to Fred Seelman?
He's still there, evidently running the Republican club there.
Okay.
Haven't seen Fred. Maybe he'll be at the convention tomorrow.
I thought he might try to run again.
Yeah, he did not. And I mean, he's up there in years too, Fred.
Yeah, I know. I mean, 19 is going to see one of its biggest turnovers than we've had in years because I'm not running, Jeff's not running, and Shelley's not running, right?
Yeah, Shelley's not running. Martha's the sole survivor. She wins the District 19 Survivor game.
Yeah, good for her. The committee needs her because once again, if they're gonna continue to do the county fair, she's the point person. She's done a great job of pulling it all together.
And where are they going to go to get somebody to strike them an $8,000 check when they can't really raise money?
Yeah.
And not to belabor a point, but I tell you, a lot of the people that are not, a lot of the old guard that aren't coming back are because they just don't feel welcome by this new clown show, so to speak. Where they're not running. Larry Lesser is not running. And he's been around. Only people from the class of 2010 that are still going to be on the ballot this time is Lorraine Kuchme, myself, Marcus Alzona. Josephine didn't run in 14, so I don't know if she counts, but I'll count her. Martha is the other one, and I think everyone else and Pat Finati is running, and Joe Gillen. That's it, I think, of people that have been around for 12 plus years.
That probably sounds right. I mean, a lot of those people that are the core of the people who they'll continue to run for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. But I tell you, if a lot of our friends get wiped out, I may just not. Because honestly, it's like it has been 12 years.
Yeah, but look. I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of our regular meetings to begin with because I always thought they went on. But now it's just like I really have a hard time figuring what exactly the purpose of these meetings and what we're accomplishing. I did feel at least when I was attending those meetings when we had them, pre-COVID and under other chairmen, that we actually had a decent agenda and we were actually getting some things done.
Yeah.
But I just haven't felt that way for a long time, and I've got bigger fish to fry, as they say.
Yeah, and the committees are basically they're trying to be mini policy organizations. That's not the job of the committee, frankly. If you want to do a frank answer, it's like that's not our job to be policy people. Our job is to recruit candidates and cover the polls and make sure we have precinct coverage. And that's one thing that's lost among these people. They think they're a junior league, frankly. They don't. They're really clueless on a lot of matters, per se. And I think that's probably why a lot of people aren't running. Debbie Lambert, she's not running again. And
though I think part of that also is health related, but
yeah. How is she doing? Is she back home or because Eric said Eric sent me an address which is an apartment. So I guess she moved into an apartment, or I'm not sure if it's a rehab place she's staying at.
Yeah, Young and I were talking about that today. That I've got to send her another text and find out what's going on, because I promised that we would try to visit her, but even texting her sometimes it's just like sometimes
This is the address I got from Eric. I'm just gonna put it in the chat for you. And I asked him how she's doing. He said she's doing better,
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean, given her age,
mhm.
I mean, I think recovery time is just it's tricky.
Yeah, I mean, there, like Josephine right now, she took her a little. I told her, Josephine, it takes time to get over stuff, and it is allergy season, so and and
So I went ahead and I'm trying to map this thing out.
mhm.
Yeah, I mean, it shows up as Care Plus Home Health.
Yeah, that's I think where she's staying. Probably, I think that might be the rehab place. And I think so yeah, I'm gonna send Eric a note saying, is she up for visitors? Stop offs,
Yeah.
for some candies and stuff like that. But back to it's been a busy week. Also, another bad week for Joe Biden is a good week for America. I think.
So Young and I were. I mean, we were discussing. Well, actually, I guess it was Spencer when I was on the phone with him. We were talking about a little bit. We're trying to be somewhat respectful of the office of the president.
Yes.
But as he said, one of his very hardcore friends that lives out here said that you have to watch out for your criticism, because it might be construed as elder abuse at this point. Watching Joe Biden and his many failings, this is kind of sad. I mean, I think Spencer was mentioning the former Rolling Stone writer Matt Taibbi, however you pronounce his name, that he's even now apparently regretting not even kind of just ignoring Biden's age and some potential issues, and just says this is not good. I mean, this is a liberal looking at it saying got a problem. I mean, Biden he's stumbling over things. He can't remember words when he's speaking.
Can't pronounce words that are on the teleprompter.
He's a president of the United States. This is an embarrassment.
Yeah, do you remember all the grief President Bush got when they said he didn't know how to pronounce nuclear?
Yeah.
And it's like, where are those Saturday Live skits now? Where Joe Biden, drooling and can't, bumbling around, it's like this guy is. And everyone, and as in, we do have, we are Republicans. We do respect the office of the presidency, even though the left does not. The left has no shame, no decorum, no nothing, and that is the new Democrat Party. This is not even Bill Clinton's Democrat Party. This is something that's totally foreign to Bill Clinton. It's kind of it's just I don't know. I don't even recognize this Democrat. Remember, the Democrats used to be for free speech. The ACLU went to court to let the Klan and Nazis march in Skokie, Illinois. Where are those ACLU people when the conservatives are having their free speech infringed?
Yeah, well, they're never around, because it's they define it as whatever they want to define it as.
Yes, it's hate speech. Yes.
Yeah, it becomes hate speech. It's racism. It's whatever.
So what was the ACL? What was the ACL thinking when they defended the Klan and the Nazis' right to march?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point though, because
that's truly hate speech, And
yeah,
if us saying Joe Biden has a bad haircut is a hate speech, or his policies are wrong for America, they're wrong for you, he's too liberal. that's hate speech. But when you had neo Nazis and the Klansmen marching and the ACLU went to the mat to defend them, there's something wrong there. There's something seriously wrong there.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, I mean, they're just even innocent phrases and things like that that have, that we've been saying for the last 30, 40 years or whatever. Now you don't even know if you can say certain things anymore, which are pretty innocuous because they're being twisted around into hate speech, into racism or whatever. The interpretation is like, are you kidding me? It's like, you can't do this anymore.
No, it's like these people. They I don't know. It's like, let me tell you. I don't know if you ever watch the older shows on Antenna TV doesn't do this, but there used to be the Family Channel, which got dropped, I think, by NASA. Actually, not NASA, what I'm saying, but FiOS. NASA's not the business.
Hey, NASA.
I had a lot of NASA meetings today. But FiOS, it used to be it basically replaced the Farm Channel, AFP or whatever. You can still get it; it's online only now. But they used to bleep out All in the Family. Actually, they don't bleep it; they just mute it. Like the Jeffersons, George's favorite words were all just, like they dub those out and stuff like that, and they do that to All in the Family and stuff like that. I mean, it kind of takes. I mean, if you think about some of the stuff that Archie Bunker says, if you bleep it out, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, And they're doing that, and I know, they're going around. I mean, they canceled the Cosby Show. Do they? That's one thing they seem to not understand. That one, Bill Cosby was playing Heathcliff Huxtable. Heathcliff Huxtable was not playing Bill Cosby on the show. And, like they've gotten rid of that show. I still think it still made some valid points in the early years. Then it got really woke also towards the end of the series, But I'll tell you one thing, I will give the Cosby Show a little bit. They never played the race card. Like you see, if you watch Blackish or any of those shows, they always do one or two episodes focused strictly on race. I think the closest thing, there was an episode of the early years of Cosby where they're listening to Dr. King's speech on television or something. That may have been the closest. I could have forgotten it because I stopped watching Cosby in the later years. The Raven Simone era. I stopped watching Cosby.
And look, I mean, we just have to remember, and this is what people, particularly liberals, the lefties, don't do, is that all these shows, All in the Family, all the things that you're mentioning, the Jeffersons and things like that, you couldn't make them today, but if you don't try to adjust them to meet today's standards, which are already kind of screwy to begin with, put them in context. At the time that they were running on television, everything they were doing was perfectly acceptable. So just leave it alone, and move on. The things change. I mean, television, you and I both know television has just become very politically correct, very woke.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing I can just... I think there's only two shows that have not gotten that political. That's probably because I don't watch them enough. But the Goldbergs is not very political at all. It's actually politically incorrect. There's a lot of episodes that are politically incorrect on that show. And I think Abbott Elementary School is another one where they kind of poke fun of how public schools are run. I kind of like that. I've only seen 2 episodes, so I don't know if you've been watching that show more than that. But I've seen 2 episodes. They don't seem that bad.
What show was that again?
Abbott Elementary School.
I saw a couple episodes, but as much as I enjoyed it to a certain extent, the other side of it is that it's so office-like, it was making my head explode a little bit. But I mean, that cast was wonderful. I mean, the principal, the teacher. I mean, they're hilarious. I have to admit about that. I mean, she spent money. What was it? The principal spent money on a sign or something like that.
Yep. And something that is not so far from the truth how things are in reality.
Yeah. No.
You have all these they get money from public schools. They'll spend it on stupid things like electronic signs and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's just I've since I was a young boy. I mean, I've loved sitcoms, but I've also had a love for police shows, crime dramas and things like that.
Y50 couldn't be done today, by the way. I mean, that's another show,
Yeah, obviously the remake was different than the original.
Did the remake have Wolf Fat in it? The Chinese mobster?
Yeah, it still have the criminal element in it, but there's a lot of Dick Wolf has got a lot of programs on, not just from his Law and Order from NBC, but he also has the ones on CBS, and those shows are fine. I mean, I try to judge them whether or not it's the FBI or whatever it is in the context of remembering. It's like, it's a Dick Wolf production. And so there's a likelihood that it will sway left somewhere along the line. But a show that I liked when I was younger, which was SWAT, they remade it.
Yep.
And now the lead guy is black, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when that show first started several years ago, I'm like, well, this is fine. This is just
Yeah.
I mean, they have you've got your Chinese guy in there, you've got your women in there,
Yep.
It's a very diverse, multicultural,
Yeah.
fine. I don't really care. But
I heard they offered Colin Kaepernick the role of Link
lately, as when I had watched it, that it has become more about racial justice, social justice.
Yeah.
And less about the storyline. I'm like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore.
Very true. And it's like they don't seem to get a lot of the fact that nobody watches television to see reality, frankly. It's like television is supposed to be an escape. It's not supposed to, as Homer Simpson put it, television isn't supposed to teach you stuff. It's supposed to it's supposed to let you go, forget about what the world's like.
I mean, it's supposed to be entertainment. That's why, I mean, we're still on a big reality TV show wave in terms of the Survivor, the Bachelorette.
When will those end? They've been around 30 years now. The reality.
I don't know. They've been
TV?
around a long time. I mean, so there are a lot of those types of shows, and that's why there's all those Real Housewives and all that kind of stuff. And
Candid Camera probably was the original reality TV show with Alan Funt.
Candid Camera, maybe one of the best shows on television because it was so funny. It was laugh out.
That was CBS's Thursday night lineup, I think, for a while. You had Candid Camera, then you had Y50, and then you had Barnaby Jones.
Yeah. I mean, and you want some of the best entertainment, some of the funniest things. Carol Burnett show,
Yes.
The Honeymooners,
Oh, you could never do Carol Burnett anymore either.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could. There's just so much stuff you couldn't do, and what Tim Conway did on that show with his ad libs and everything that he did, cracking up Harvey Korman and everything like this.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen today. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's no equivalent to Tim Conway's, Harvey Korman's, Bob Hope's, or George Burns, or even stand-up comics like Richard Pryor from the 80s, or Eddie Murphy. They don't have any real comparable people, but
you couldn't do Mama's Family anymore, probably, right?
Oh no, you could not. Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can't do. It's television really has changed. Even PBS has changed a lot too. PBS, it seems like they're always asking for money, and I'm thinking like, why are you asking for money every weekend? And it's like, so those are infomercials. If you think about it, they got Susie Orman pushing her thing, and then you can get a free book in a Nina Toten bag. You get nonsensical stuff like that, and it's always like a commercial. It's like PBS has now just become the infomercial channel on weekends. They just do, you have Dr. Josh Axe, then he sells his books. Well, doesn't sell them, but PBS probably buys it and then gives it away to pledgers, people that pledge money and stuff like that.
So from my standpoint, the best thing about PBS really is that when they release certain limited series for their Masterpiece Theater thing,
Yeah.
where they've done some adaptations of things, about 6 shows, is usually the season. Good stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a penchant for I like a lot of British shows,
Mhm.
and when they and I if they're going back, playing 200 plus years back in time or whatever,
Yeah.
those are pretty well done. But that to me that's actually pretty quality television stuff that the networks rarely ever put on anymore.
No.
They've filled it up with so much garbage now.
Yeah. And even the American Experience segments that PBS does, that's pretty good. They actually had a really good PBS did something in Washington in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and so on. It was really well put together. They did talk about how DC was the murder capital. They kind of glorified Marion Barry, I thought, but it is what it is. It's PBS. We're not going to get them focus on the pitfalls. But I tell you, PBS, William F. Buckley had Firing Line on there for years and years and years. And then we had.
Every time I think about Firing Line and PBS, I keep thinking it's like, anybody ever tried to, PBS would never even consider putting a program like that on now.
No, they would not. I mean, they got that. I mean, they got the other side. They got Charles Osgood does a really lefty show on. I don't know if he still does it, but it used to be air like I want to say Wednesday nights or something. It was like Charles Osgood, and then they'd have the second show after that would be another weird guy that would do something. I mean, I used to enjoy watching Motor Week on Maryland Public Television back in the day. But I mean, you have the left. They're also banning things like Catcher in the Rye. They're banning To Kill a Mockingbird, Huck Finn. I mean, aren't these considered classical literature, American classical literature? Frankly, but yet they won't ban Shakespeare. And Shakespeare's made some anti-Semitic comments, and there's some stuff that's like Macbeth. There's a couple of anti-Semitic remarks in there if you read Macbeth. But yet they won't ban those, but they'll ban Huck Finn and To Kill a Mockingbird. And frankly, I don't like either one of them. Frankly, actually, I did enjoy Huck Finn. I did not like To Kill a Mockingbird, nor did I like Catcher in the Rye or any of those required readings we had in high school.
Yeah, I don't think the thing was. I'm thinking like, I don't remember reading To Kill a Mockingbird, but I do remember being shown the film in school.
Mm-hmm. And I remember we had to do Romeo and Juliet, then they showed us West Side Story. And I'm thinking, like, could we do something more important than watching some stupid movie, musical? And then they showed, I think one of the best things, it wasn't my history class, but it was another history class. They got to watch all of Roots. And I think that was really good that they did that, because that actually puts a nice bow tie and, on the whole slavery, post-slavery America, and goes all the way up to World War II. I think I'm not sure where it ends, but I mean, Roots goes on. I think Alex Haley goes all the way to like World War II or after World War II, like to 52. Like it goes on. I think it might even go all the way to the Civil Rights Act. I'm not sure how long Roots, but I'm sure one of our many viewers would know how long it went for. But it's great they do stuff like that, but they can't do any of that stuff today. You can't show. I mean, and what's funny is you can't read. This is a lot. You can't read To Kill a Mockingbird in a public school, but you can go and read Lawn Boy Man or Lawnmower Man, whatever the hell the book they have. It's there's something really wrong when Huck Finn is banned, but you got all these sexually explicit books they want kids to be reading. I mean, there's something wrong there. We are really living in alternate reality seems like, where everything that's up is down and what's down is up. It's like they're glorifying all of this stuff, and it really.
What about Gone with the Wind?
I don't see anything wrong. I hated that movie, but I thought it was too long. I thought it was too only long movie I liked watching was The Ten Commandments because it had the best special effects for the time. And I am like always amazed seeing the parting of the Red Sea. That's like one of the great but. And actually, a few weeks ago, I think maybe like the week of Easter, one of those digital channels, is like a movie channel. And they had some movie that I remember watching when I was like 4 years old. It's basically it starts with Adam and Eve, goes all the way through Tower of Babel to the crucifixion, right? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, it was maybe called Genesis. I'm not sure what the name of it was, but it was. I was like, wow, I haven't seen this movie since I was like 4 years old, and I go, yeah, special effects still hold up. Like they got this really great shot of the destruction of the Tower of Babel and so on. And I'm like, hey, there you go. That's pretty good. Still holds up. And right now, public school couldn't even show it. What are they having? Classical literature these days, But and this all ties back to the new Democrat left, the class of '69. Class of '68 taking over education and so on. And that's why we have things like CRT. And I don't know if you saw it, Don. I had a couple of graphics I did explaining CRT in layman's terms. I don't even remember seeing any of those. But, here's a few things that we never used to get, basically to get to the, we didn't use CRT to get to the moon. We didn't use CRT to discover vaccines. We didn't use CRT to build electric cars, build bridges, build tunnels. We use STEM education. And that's right now, that should be the biggest focus right now. They're not teaching CRT in China and Germany and anywhere else in the world, frankly. They're teaching science, technology, engineering, math. That is what they're teaching the kids, not CRT. And that there's a reason why test math and math scores are down in America. Maybe if we wouldn't spend too much time on CRT, maybe our test scores would be higher.
That's an interesting point. I had not really thought about that until you mentioned that, but that's really interesting point about, if CRT, and even the 1619, garbage that's out there. If this is so great and needs to be taught, why isn't it really being taught elsewhere based on, it doesn't necessarily fit every single country per se, but if other countries are really trying to focus on STEM because they know what that'll do to the students and help develop the scientists and engineers and whatever of tomorrow, and we're focused now on dealing with racial justice, income inequality, food insecurity, social justice issues. We're caught up in this whole cultural.
See, Don, this is my favorite, one of my favorite ones. The moon landing was made possible by STEM, not CRT. I don't know how much more difficult, to understand this is. People don't get that, and we got the White House, yet they push this stuff. He just put a ministry of truth, for all lack of a better word. I believe a guy named Adolf Hitler had a ministry of truth, and Joe Stalin.
Right. Yeah, and we're joking about in terms of what the name is, but it does give you that whole, I don't know, Soviet style, communist bloc, Nazi Germany, all these kinds of things that the Ministry of Truth. And if you say something that the Ministry of Truth disapproves of, maybe you could be thrown in jail or something or other. Who knows? Mm-hmm. But this thing is, what is it? It's called the Disinformation Governance Board, and it's interesting to note how this whole thing all of a sudden appears after the whole
Elon Musk.
Right?
But Don,
what a coincidence.
yeah. Hey Don, I'm old enough for when Elon Musk was held up by the left as the greatest virtuous capitalist in the world. They loved Elon. It's kind of like they all loved Donald Trump until he became a registered Republican running for president. If you recall back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, one of the highest rated episodes of The Nanny, oh, that's another show they couldn't do today either, was the one where Donald Trump appears on there. Because evidently, I think that he's supposed to be bankrolling one of the musicals that Mr. Sheffield is doing or something like that. But Donald Trump, I mean, The Apprentice was wildly popular, and it was on NBC of all places.
I'll say, I mean, I watched a fair amount of The Apprentice, and I mean, it was a little bit over the top on some things, but there were. I mean, I will say one thing is that there were products, that they were doing that, while they were trying to do the marketing for there, that I hadn't really heard of before, hadn't thought of before. I mean, it was great for the products to get a chance to see what these people could do, but it also gives you this. It's like getting a free commercial for this product, and everything like that. And so, those were interesting times. But this thing is being run under, what is it, the DHS or something like that. I mean, and they got one of the women on the panel, this Nina Jankowicz. She comes up and she thinks that doing this video on TikTok set to the music.
Yeah, the Sound of Music. Yeah.
Project Expialidocious.
Oh yeah, that's Sound of Music. That's Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins is going to be something that needs to be done. But Spencer and I were having a chat this afternoon, and he was pointing out, which I think is rightfully so. It's just that for some reason, liberals in government think they have to be relatable, and they do these things. It's like, look, people just want you to do your job. Not that anybody wants you to have this particular job, because this is just outrageous that you're trying to do this. All of a sudden, you're creating this thing. I mean, it's like, what country are we? Are we the United States of America? Or are we something else when you do this? But this it just shows the ridiculousness of what's happening in the Biden administration and the complete knee-jerk reaction to Musk's Biden. And the thing is that the liberals have gone crazy about this. I mean, you have people going on, leaving Twitter, became a trending hashtag, right? But people would say, I'm leaving Twitter, but then they kept tweeting, right? And so they're not leaving Twitter. As I said,
it's like that employee that says, "I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit," but they never quit. It's kind of like Otto von Bismarck. He would always threaten to resign to Kaiser Wilhelm, and the Kaiser would beg him to stay, and because Otto had no sense of ever resigning, but he liked seeing the Kaiser beg.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this somewhat pragmatically. I mean, there's that whole big fight in Florida between Disney and Florida, and DeSantis versus Disney. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of conservatives say, well, I'm canceling my Disney Plus subscription. I'm not going to watch Disney Channel, and I'm not going to take my kids to Disneyland or Disney World or anything Disney. I'm not going to watch any Marvel movies, whatever. The list goes on. Some people have more, some people have less. Here's the thing. There's a small percentage of those people who actually will carry through. The rest of the people are still going to take their kids to Disney World in Florida. It's going to happen. Or a Disney-related theme park in Florida. They're still going to have their Disney Plus channel and pay for it because they need their kids and their grandkids.
They need that babysitter.
They're going to do that. So to me, that is somewhat the conservative equivalent of what the liberals are doing about leaving Twitter. They're saying this, and both sides in this case to me are virtue signaling, but they really don't mean it. They're still going to go on their way and still do what they were doing before.
Yeah, it's like, remember when Coca-Cola, they called it Woca-Cola, this and that, and everybody talked about not buying Coke. I'm sorry, I'm not going to drink Pepsi. I like Coke. Pepsi tastes horrible. I think Pepsi's too sweet. I think Pepsi does dealings in China. They do dealings in Russia. Well, so it's Coke, but Coke just tastes better. But I mean, it's like I'm not gonna stop drinking Coke because I do like Coke. I'm not gonna. I don't like boycotts. I think boycotts are stupid. Frankly. I mean, it's always the left that's boycotting. We don't boycott. We have brains. We have functioning brains. We buy the best product out there. Well, I'm not going to buy the second best cola just because I don't agree with the politics of Coke. And by the way, Pepsi's politics, not that is even more woke than Coke's policies, frankly.
Well, that's part of the problem, though, right? I mean, even with Disney, I mean, you can extend it, even take it a step further. I mean, Disney owns ESPN. Are conservatives going to stop watching sports on ESPN as part of the protest? It isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen.
And I think, Don, you and I, we come from the era of Paul Weyrich and the godfathers of the conservative movement, Morton Blackwell, your dad, not Howie Phillips, Richard Viguerie, that's who I was thinking of. And who was that other guy? I'm trying to think of his name. Was it Howie Phillips? Well, Howie Phillips, who was Howie Phillips? Christian Coalition? No, he was
Conservative Caucus.
Yeah, and what's his name?
Christian Coalition was like Ralph Reed and those guys.
Yeah, Ralph Reed. Yeah, and here's the thing, so it's funny. I talked to a lot of my friends. I was talking to one of my friends from Free Congress, and he kind of was like, he goes, it's gotten like way too crazy because I couldn't deal with the stuff, Because stupid people have infested both sides now.
Yeah, but you're right about in terms of the pop. I got involved with this ETF that's trying to steer a course of not investing in the worst companies that have liberal politics. But the fund manager knows one thing is that there is no way to say I'm going to set up an investment fund of just conservative companies that have like zero liberal policies, because you can't find them. And
there isn't one.
And at least not publicly held, right? I mean, if you want the companies that you would want to hold up there would be maybe Hobby Lobby and Chick-fil-A as a couple of examples, but they're privately held companies.
Yeah. And in the old days, Rick Edelman, he used to always say this. He goes, don't not buy a sin company, buy the sin company so you can go to their shareholders meeting and voice your opinion. He goes, if you don't, you're just standing outside yelling at the building, where they can't hear you. You need to, he says, buy the best possible stocks for retirement. And he made a very good point. I mean, your dad used to own shares of CBS and the New York Times and Washington Post so he could go to those shareholder meetings.
Right.
And that's where they hear you. Tweeting out that, Coca-Cola has horrible, policies, they don't care, frankly. It's like, it's kind of like, everyone says, when you're on top, when you're successful, everyone's always trying to tear you down. And nobody pays attention, to you, frankly. You go into the shareholders meetings and you can actually, voice your opinion, and, you might find other shareholders that feel the same way. And that's how you enact policy changes of these organizations, not by tweeting out, this is a bad company. No, you get shares, because I tell you, Coca-Cola will listen to their shareholders. If enough of their shareholders say, we don't like your woke policy, you would believe they're going to switch things around, because that's really where they're going to hurt,
Well, yeah, look, and Musk is an example of that kind of, right? I mean, Elon, he's not a perfect guy by any stretch of imagination. He's really kind of all over the map with a lot of things. But I'm going to say, and he's the guy is brilliant by building companies that really haven't required the use of his money, right? I mean, Solar City never would have succeeded without the tax credits. Tesla really would not have succeeded without the tax credits. SpaceX doesn't succeed without government contracts from NASA and whatnot. So he's built company upon company upon company doing that.
Yeah.
Buying Twitter is a huge risk for him because he's now going to have to put up some of his own wealth, pledging sell some Tesla stock, pledge some of that stock. He now has bankers, that are lending him money for this. The debt service, the amount of fees he's got to pay to fund the debt service every year currently equals the revenue of Twitter, not the
Yeah.
not the profits, the revenue.
Mhm.
So
Maybe he'll bring back paid ads on Twitter too. Maybe because that's
yeah,
one
I
thing
mean,
that
he'll find ways to they'll
you
try to
know.
figure this out. But I mean, he's not buying a business that where the government he's going to find the government being able to save his butt here.
Yeah.
You don't have a tax credit for Twitter.
Yep.
Now the other, and because of all of these things, and the fact that he's got to find a way to finance about half the deal with his own money, and collateral. It's not a done deal. The stock is not selling. It's selling well below
Yeah.
what he's willing to pay for it because Wall Street is still not sure whether or not he can pull this off. And we know there's going to be at least 6 months for him to consummate this deal. But the liberals are going off like all of a sudden everything has changed immediately today.
Yes.
And it hasn't, but it has stirred the pot with the liberals because they're all, and I think Musk criticized the Democrats for some of the things, that they were saying. So that makes them be even madder now and everything like that.
But they forget the times when he was criticizing Republicans, right, on lack of having a green policy. I seem to remember him saying a few choice words about former governor, current Senator Mitt Romney when he was running for president, when he brought up Solyndra, just saying, it's like Mitt Romney is not this conservative savior that's descending to save, he just agrees with us on free speech. He's not going to agree with us on everything.
Yeah, well, look, to me, Elon Musk, does what a lot of people do. He's put his interests are his interests, and he puts himself first. He's not being altruistic in the name of free speech. He has an angle here. He has an end game here, and it's like if you own part of it is that he's been in spats with the SEC about stuff he's tweeted, which have apparently violated securities laws because he's saying things he shouldn't be saying. You've got to be very careful what you say. You can't just go tweet something off without saying legal or compliance should take a look at that before you do that to make sure you're not going to get the SEC raining down on you. Elon doesn't really care, so he does these things.
And here's the thing. That's why, for my campaign Twitter, I don't tweet anything. I've got Caroline, she'll tweet stuff. I'll send her a bunch of stuff. Hey, we need to tweet this. And it'll be like, no, you can't say that. I'll send something else. She'll say, oh, you can't say that. You can't say that. You can't say that. Oh, yeah, we can use this one. I mean, I'll send her like hundreds and she'll use one out of the 100. And, honestly, that's probably the best way to do it because as a candidate, me saying some of the stuff like, because the whole CRT and STEM graphic, I really put that to the ringer and asked a whole host of people, and then we decided to go with it. If it was just me, I would say, hey, just run with it. Who cares, But, you do need to get a pulse on stuff. I hate sounding like I'm doing these focus grouping stuff, but it's like you kind of, in this day and age, you got to do that, unfortunately,
Yeah, I think to a certain extent, Donald Trump would have been better had he had somebody over his shoulder kind of managing him and advising him on his tweets. But Donald Trump is a very strong personality, and I don't think he would have stood for that. He was no filter. When you saw his tweets, they were all over the place. That was pure Donald Trump. Politically, from an election standpoint, particularly for 2020, I think that his tweeting history hurt him.
I think if he did not tweet, he'd be President Trump.
I think there's a fair chance that he would.
Gas would be about $1 something a gallon.
Because part of it too is that the media and others, they piled on him and they have a record of all these mean tweets, as we'll call them, and it's hard to get out from under that. So yes, I think it does affect that. Of course, people now look back and probably think, I probably would feel better if I had Trump's mean tweets than Biden not knowing what the heck he's doing.
Biden doesn't know what tweet is. He thinks tweet is what you say to a bird,
Well, every once in a while, when I do look at Twitter, I'll see, a Joe Biden tweet in my timeline about promoting the economy and the jobs and stuff like that. So but now he's going to have to pivot a little bit because GDP was down for the first quarter,
Yeah.
and
Are we headed to a recession? I don't
he,
know.
he he's not worried about it. He says, "I don't think we're going to go." He's not worried about it, but there are enough warning signs out there that it's a possibility. Let's deal with the reality. It might happen. It might not happen, but it might happen. The
Yeah.
Federal Reserve is going to be part of that key, but the administration has not been able to get a handle on how to slow down inflation. And when every month you're getting a 40-year high, this is not a solution. We're about 6 months away from a midterm election. This is not good for the Democrats. They're in huge trouble.
Very true, and I think that the Democrats are out of touch. You know, they don't. I mean, if you recall, let's just go back to the 1988, 1992 presidential elections, where on Meet the Press, Tim Russert asked all the presidential candidates what the price of a gallon of milk was, and nobody knew it except Steve Forbes. That's also part of the reason why I make it a point to know what the price of a gallon of milk, loaf of bread, eggs, and all that is, because you never know when you're going to be asked that question, and but that is a valid point where it's like, and I was talking to this back when we were planning our 20-year high school reunion. I was talking to this very, very extremely wokey liberal commie lover member of my class, and she's going on, and I go, you guys really, and this is back when bread jumped from like $1 a loaf to like $3 a loaf or something like that, right? And I go, do you even know what the price of a gallon of milk is? She goes, oh no, I don't. I just use my card. And and then she complains how she's broke. Well, maybe that's why you're broke, because you don't know what the price of a gallon of milk is and a loaf of bread is, or a pound of coffee, That's like just stuff. I mean, I was just at the Giant not too long ago, and I could not believe the price of seltzer water, which you used to be able to get like about 4 or 5, like for about, I guess, 60 cents, 50 cents, a bottle of seltzer water. That seltzer water is now like 89 to 99 cents, depending where you go. And that's just outrageous, seltzer water. It's just bubbly water. It shouldn't cost that much money.
Yeah, and we've had this bird flu issue, and so I mean, Young buys a fair amount of eggs, and we've just seen the price of eggs skyrocket, and a lot of these things. I mean, you talk about those. I mean, milk, bread, eggs, these kinds of things. These are the the basic core elements of a lot of food that people buy, and when it goes up like it's been going up, and the administration has really no way of fighting it. They don't know really what.
Well, they don't count. Remember, they exclude the price of food from inflation.
Right. And and we understand, I mean, we understand food and energy are taken out of that because they're so volatile. But I think,
and we're still this high.
yeah, I mean, prices are still high and they take that out. But right now, food, I mean, the whole food and energy part of it, you have to consider, because it's ridiculously high and it's really putting a lot of pain in the pocketbook for a lot of people. So all those liberals who were fighting for $15 wages, most wages have gone well above $15.
Yeah,
it's still not enough because they can't control the cost side of it. And even if you've gotten a raise from 15 to 17 or 13 to 17, you're having a hard time keeping up with things, because every time you turn around, something's going up. I mean, I don't, it's just the two of us, but we haven't, we kind of think like, should we just buy this now in bigger quantities now and store what we can? Because I just have this deja vu from when I was younger, when inflation was raging during the Carter years and stuff like that, of like, if you don't buy it today, it's going to be worse tomorrow. Now, we are better off than, say, I think Argentina, which has got like 40% inflation a month. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, which is absolutely ridiculous, but they're used to it, but it's crazy. But still, the fact that, that you're now back to this whole mentality of like, if I've got enough room in my house, or my refrigerator or my freezer to store these extra food stuffs.
Well, you can freeze. Bread is freezable. You can freeze the bread.
You can freeze bread.
You can freeze cake. Look at Sara Lee. The best pound cake I think the doctors decided was Sara Lee.
Oh, now you're making me hungry because I don't think I've had Sara Lee pound cake since we did that.
And we've determined that it was better than Entenmann's and it was way better than a cheesecake. And I think the reason pound cake tastes, it's not as filling as a cheesecake is. Cheesecake just is a lot more filling than a pound cake, That's incidentally also.
I mean, the pound cake is just a cake. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no frosting on it. There's no filling in it or anything like that. That's it. And I mean, I grew up eating Sara Lee pound cake. I can't even count how much Sara Lee pound cake I ate as a kid. But my dad bought that little thing of Sara Lee pound cake almost every week. I cannot believe that we ate.
But
that.
shrinkflation. Look, when you were a kid, that Sara Lee was probably as wide as my phone. The pan was probably about, maybe not quite this wide, but
I can't remember. It was a good.
The lengthwise was almost like the size, about the same length as an egg carton or something like that, or close to it.
Yeah.
But the width was, I think, maybe it was not quite,
pretty fat.
about this much.
Yeah.
Now it's like this.
They're mini slices.
Yeah, it's kind of like the fun size candies even shrunk. I was talking to somebody about how back when Governor Allen ran for governor of Virginia, one of the things we did on Halloween was, back then you could buy the big Hershey bars. They came in a sleeve, right? So we got palm cards that we slid into the sleeves that said, it's obviously you care about your child's health and well-being because you're checking his candy out or her candy out. But now let's talk about their economic and fiscal futures. And we talked about taxes and how things are bad in Virginia and how we need to, and so on. And that's really that. But I was saying we can't do it anymore because Hershey's doesn't have the sleeves anymore, And we've got, it's kind of hard to figure that one out. You can't do that.
All right, we're at 57 minutes, Dwight.
Yes, I guess it's final thoughts time. We actually, being all over the board today, we did get a lot of stuff in.
That's what makes this show fun. I mean, we're very freewheeling. We, and just kind of go along. We start one place and we just kind of let it. We never know where it's going. I mean, last week we spent a lot of time talking about Zoysia.
Yeah, I think we jump in the car and we just start driving in the direction, just keep going. Who knows where we end up? But I'll let you start. Final thoughts.
All right. So I have, you saw on the list my update. So Orioles Magic 6-13.
Yeah, but they got the Yankees number.
Yeah, but the Nationals.
And how is it you have a 4-hitter and you lose the game?
The Nationals are now 6-15. But Patrick Corbin actually went 6 innings, and I think he only gave up 2 runs. So he lowered his
small victories
to under 9. This is a guy that they signed to, what was it? Did they send him to like a 7-year contract and we're in like year 3 or 4? But the last couple seasons he's been horrible. And I'm like, okay, Nationals, I know you guys are tight on money. You really do this, but you're going to have to start thinking about when you're ready to eat a contract and move on. I mean, the Orioles had that same problem with Chris Davis. They sent him to a huge contract after he mashed like 50 home runs, and then he went into the toilet. And they kept playing him and they kept paying him because they had this salary they had to pay him, but they could not bear to part with him because they didn't want to have the dead money.
The way they look, what they should do instead of doing salaries, just give them a bonus at the end of the season. See, the way I look at it, right? Let's say you hire somebody and you're paying, they're doing great work and you're paying them $80,000 a year. So you want to say, hey, he does great work. I should take up to $110,000. I don't think anybody gets those kind of raises. Well, let's just say you got a really generous one, it takes you over $100K, right? And then they just decide to slough off because you know what? They don't need to earn it. But if I would keep paying you $80,000 at the end of the year, would give you a $40,000 bonus or something like that. That's something you would work harder throughout the year. That's why the best stores you go to are the ones where they have the salespeople work on commission. Sears got rid of commission. That's why Sears' service sucked.
Yeah,
Circuit City also.
I have mixed feelings about the commission salespeople because then you kind of get into the cycle of where you have some people are trying to sell you more than you need in
Yeah.
order to collect the commission. So that's always a little bit of that double-edged sword type of thing like that.
Yes.
You
That
know,
extended
in
teams.
sports, you know, people have big years. If they get to that free agency point, they're looking for that big contract. There are people who sometimes will then have a little bit of a slump, and then they get to their walk year or their contract year, and so all of a sudden they're not worth as much as they would have been 2 years ago. So they
Mhm.
may take a lesser contract, but then they'll have incentives in the
Yeah.
contract, right? You hit
Mhm.
this many home runs, or you drive in this many runs, or you score this many touchdowns, or whatever. You make an all-star team or an all-pro team, you get bonuses, right? You help
Yeah,
the team,
you get to the World Series, you get a bump, You
right?
get
So
to the
you win
playoffs.
certain awards and stuff like that. I like that. I like incentives because you're not necessarily overpaying somebody for lack of performance. There's a motivation there, but the sports world's really not built on that as much. They're built on awarding big contracts to
Mhm.
players. I mean, the NBA's got this system which I don't even understand, where after a certain number of years they have these different things, and the league kind of sets the contract prices, which I guess is part of the control to keep salaries from getting way out. But you can have a guy who hits a certain number of years, and they could be eligible for the supermax contract, which would be like 4 years and for
Yeah.
$35 million a year, even if they're not a great player.
Yep.
It's like, okay,
Very true.
at that point in time, it's like, I don't know how this really works, if this is going to work really well. But you just never know. But yeah, so we'll see. My thing is now is like I really think that the Orioles and the Nationals, they're going to be
Mhm.
in a horse race to see who wins the more games.
Mhm.
The Nationals have sunk so far; they've actually sunk to the Orioles level. The Orioles might actually rise up a little bit. I mean, it is possible, it is conceivable that the Orioles might actually win more games than the Nationals, and they're both bad teams this year.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of hope for them on this.
Remember, the Orioles have a strategy. It's called playing spoiler in September, dashing the hopes of the second and third place teams from getting to the playoffs. That is their job. They've done it. They used to do it to the Boston Red Sox all the time. And I know I've got some Red Sox fans that are friends of mine. They go, why do they do it? They're not going there. They don't need to ruin our chances. I go, that's their job to play. You guys are so busy worried about the Yankees. You don't look at the other, which is the Orioles, who will have your number every year, and you'll be staying home with the Orioles watching the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be a Washington Senators, Washington Nationals homeboy, on this.
Mhm.
So I've always had a hard time liking the Orioles. Though I did think Earl Weaver. I mean, the Orioles had some fabulous players over the years. And
Yeah.
Earl Weaver was one of my favorite managers because the guy was just he get thrown out of games. He was so doggone entertaining, and he was a great manager.
Yeah.
But what Peter Angelos has done there is a
But
trash.
you know what they'd call Earl Weaver today, right? A bully.
Oh yeah,
They call George Steinbrenner. He was a bully. He didn't make his money.
yeah. You really, I mean, you can't be like Earl Weaver. You can't be like Billy Martin was. Those guys, those are old style managers that wouldn't make it in today's baseball
No.
at all, Major League Baseball at all. But what Angelos has done is taken a franchise that had a lot of success for a lot of years and have just thrown it down the toilet with no clear vision as to whether or not he's even going to make them a mediocre team. I mean, a 500 team in Baltimore would be huge for them because they haven't seen it in so many years, and their team is not moving in that direction anytime soon.
No, and I think the biggest problem with the Orioles is, one, Peter Angels has no incentive to take his checkbook out and start buying
Right.
decent players because the Orioles are making money every year. They are one of the more profitable teams uh, in major leagues. And even if you go even back to the old Orioles of the back, I guess the '60s, when they weren't that. There was one year where they were like one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball, but they were making more money than the number one team, which was, I think, the Cleveland Indians back then. And it's kind of like, hey, what are we doing wrong? We're going to the World Series. We got the playoffs. We won the World Series, and the team that's like in the cellar is beating us and making money.
Yeah, I mean, baseball's economics are a little upside down in the sense that teams like the Orioles, which spend very little money on payroll, because of that, they can make money because television, all the other ancillary revenue.
Masson, they're part owners of Masson.
Right? Yeah, but I mean, they get a cut for for a lot of different things. They have all this revenue sharing, so you don't have to spend a lot to still make money. And if the Angelos could be just content to say, "Look, I'm making money. I'm fine."
Yeah.
The players, I'm
I don't have to go into my tobacco settlement.
The problem is that he's a major league. He's got a major league ball club, but he's putting a AAA baseball team at best on the field.
Yes.
So attendance sucks, but he doesn't need attendance to be great to make money.
I think the Bowie Bay Sox could beat the Orioles these days.
Yeah, who knows? I'm hoping to go to a Bay Sox game this year, though, for the first time in ever.
Actually, they actually do. You can actually do an event there too. They get you a private box, and because I had a friend that used to do their marketing. I need to give him. Then he went to go do marketing for Safeway. But I should call him up to see if maybe we could squeeze something the club could do a Friday or a Saturday game, or we could go something down to Nats Park. I know Shelley would join us for that. But yeah.
So all right. So my couple other just things real quick here. So Macron beats Le Pen. So the Le Pen family has a history of losing presidential elections in France, but
yes.
his Macron's victory was narrower. It's about half of what he did 5 years ago, and he had to admit that it wasn't because everybody supported him. It was that he got a lot of people who were just anti-Le Pen. So he doesn't really have a big mandate, and there's a parliamentary election that comes up in mid-June, and that could also have a big effect because the Macron himself has lost a lot of his popularity, and kind of the far right and some of the left, the socialists, have been gaining some steam lately. So you could see a bigger tilt in Parliament to the other side. So we'll have to wait and see how that happens. And then the wonderful, Dr. Fauci has proclaimed that we're past the pandemic, but it's not over. So we're still, and the federal government, the Biden administration is still fighting the federal mask mandate, which, for travel, which I think technically expires next week, right? So why are we wasting our time?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, and also another thing about French politics is you have a war in Eastern Europe for all intents and purposes right now. But what happens if that thing blows up? What if, Vladimir Putin decides, I'm going to bomb some bases in Poland that are supplying, kind of like, if you think about it, it's kind of like, and we were the good guys and we did it for the right reasons when President Nixon expanded bombing into Cambodia to get the communist bases that they had there in Cambodia. Can we see Putin taking a page out of President Nixon's book and bombing Poland or the neighboring NATO countries? I know the Finnish ambassador to the U.S. says, he'll respect the NATO alliance. He's not going to. I don't know. I mean, this guy's like getting more and more desperate as the days go by. What are they? Day 66, 65 now?
65.
For this.
Yeah.
This war should have been over 62 days ago.
Yeah. I mean, Putin is a fool if he wants to challenge NATO. And we're pouring tons of money in, and other countries are trying to put money into this. And then he's trying to retaliate by trying to force, Poland and Bulgaria to pay for gas and rubles. But actually the contracts they have, through the EU and through Gazprom says that they must pay, in their own currency, or they have to pay in either euros or something else. I mean, they cannot actually pay in rubles based on the contract. That would be a violation of the EU rules in this case. But, he's trying to do things. But, now people are, these countries are learning, okay, we gotta break away from this, this hold that Russia has on us for our gas supplies, and they're doing
Mhm.
it. And as a result of this, I mean, they're going to have continual squeezes on Russia. I mean, if they can't sell their gas and other things, you know, the money that they need to keep supplying to pay for this war is going to continue to dry up. They're going to have a real problem.
Yep, and I think one of the problems, see, I could see them as an act of desperation, and one thing Putin should be looking at history of Europe. He should look what happened to Napoleon after the Second Napoleonic Wars, after he came back out of exile, right? Uh, Look at what happened to Germany after World War II. And let me tell you, it's not going to end well for the Russians. We may have to put in a DMZ between, basically just cut a swath between Russia and the rest of the civilized world in Europe and have like a DMZ where we don't want them to cross into. And if they do, that'll trigger a lot of bad things, frankly. Uh, and I don't buy, you got some people, some of our friends that are going around and saying that they think they're Nazis in Ukraine and so on like that. It's very easy to doctor documentations, as we all know. Because we don't live in a world where deep fakes aren't a thing, And you can do all sorts of fun things, Somebody could take our video and just change our wording and make it sound like we're toting the lefty talking points,
That's true. That's true.
So I mean, Russia will have a lot of problems if they try to take on NATO, frankly. And I don't know if he can hold out another 60 days on this war, frankly. I mean, does he not even ask his generals, hey, you guys said it's going to be 2 to 3 days. We're at day 65. What weren't you telling? What did we get wrong? He's not even asking. But any other final thoughts?
That's it.
Well, my final thoughts are really simple. We were driving by. I called you actually yesterday because I went over there and Jeff was taking pictures, so we're driving back, and I go, "Hey, let's call Don to see if he wants to meet up." But we decided, I thought about going to the McDonald's over there, see if they had a Shamrock Shake, but
Nope, they don't. They finally said no.
well, I'm glad I didn't bother.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was the other thing I was going to tell you was just that. So yesterday I thought, okay, let me check because I do this every couple of days.
Yeah,
And this time it says unavailable. I'm like, okay, they finally ran out of the mix or whatever they used.
I am very impressed how long they lasted. Over a month.
Yeah.
Since St. Patrick's Day. Bravo.
So now my focus is peach milkshakes from Chick-fil-A when they're ready.
What about Roy Rogers? Do they still have their mint milkshake?
That's a good question. I didn't check on that because
I should check that out because I think by the way, Shamrock Shakes.
We do need to have these taste tests to see if they measure up.
Well, I tell you this: Shamrock Shakes, peach milkshakes, the lemon frosty whatever thing, that Chick-fil-A sells. What is it? Frozen lemon ice or whatever it is.
The frosted lemonade is great.
All of it brought to you by STEM, also. Let's see. Roy Rogers.
Now Craig is chiming in. Yeah,
That'd be too easy, Craig. I could buy mint chocolate chip ice cream in.
We could do a lot of things and make our own shakes, but there's something about going to a Chick-fil-A or McDonald's and just saying, "I got this shake."
Huh? They've got strawberry shortcake at Roy Rogers.
Oh yeah, they've had strawberry shortcake, and I have yet to get up there to have one of those because that was like my number one dessert going through school. Every time they had a strawberry shortcake on the school lunch, I was definitely there.
All they have is chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla as the shakes go.
So maybe that's interesting.
But we will be stopping off at Cookout next week when we go to Ocean City because they do have a Oreo mint milkshake there.
And there's some place that's opening up or whatever, and they do really funky milkshakes.
Yeah, the Milkshake Factory. I told Jeff he needs to do a campaign event there. And it's because it's in Ellicott City. It's not too far from where he lives.
That's it.
But,
that was it. Yeah,
yeah.
I want to check that out someday.
Yeah, maybe we should go on a weekend one day. I mean, he's out of town this week, but when he's around on a weekend or a weeknight, go out there. But my final thoughts, one, next week is the Maryland Home Party Convention in fabulous Ocean City. Join us. Come join me. Come to my hospitality suite. I do reserve the right to throw you out if I don't like you. So just saying, don't be too irritated if you get thrown out. But it's nothing personal. Except I just don't like you if you get thrown out. No, I'm kidding. I kid. I'll even let Ann Hingston come into my suite. But then she probably wouldn't eat anything if she think I poisoned her.
It's always a possibility.
But my other final thoughts is that one, we need to gas prices are back up if you haven't noticed. They're 4.35 is the average I'm seeing. They're only going to get higher. I hate to say it. I went looking for cars last week. I found nothing that I want to pay money for. Closest thing I found to a hybrid was a Ford Fusion hybrid. And I was joking. I was telling Bats because Bats used to have a Ford Fusion hybrid. He goes, "Why would you buy a Fusion after all I told you?" I go, "Was it a bad car?" He goes, "No, I just got tired of having the same car for so long." And the Fusion, so. And then I went to a Nissan dealership, saw a Rogue. Rogue, yeah. And it wasn't a bad car, but it was 29. You got 29 miles per gallon, so I'd consider it. And I did find one plug-in. It was a Lincoln Aviator, but it was already sold. And I just can't believe how hard. I mean, I feel for people that need to buy a car. Like I say, their car was totaled in an accident or something like that. I feel for you guys. It is horrible. I feel your pain, as Bill Clinton would say.
Yeah, it's hard.
Craig, they're going to have a Chevy Equinox EV coming out later this summer, they say. And,
I've driven a few Chevy Equinoxes because our church, most of the missionaries have Equinoxes.
It's a good car.
But it's funny though because I knew it was smaller than my wife's Lexus RX 50, but I really didn't know how small it was. We did some carpet cleaning a week ago out by Linthicum, and just putting the carpet cleaner and the fans in there is like, whoa, I put that stuff in there, and that was all the space there was in the cargo space. Yeah. If I do that in my wife's Lexus, I still have space to do other things with that. Okay, so that gave me a visual, for me, of interior space. It's like, yeah, that car's got much less space.
Yeah, but
if I get another thing, I mean, next time around, I'd seriously consider a hybrid. I'm not sure I'm ready to go full EV yet.
Yeah, but I tell you, this is what really floored me at the Chevy dealership. They had a Chevrolet Blazer in the showroom. And I asked them, I go, "Hey, how much is this?" And it's not a big car. I mean,
they've shrunk that car over the years. It used to be pretty good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to have the GMC version of the Blazer, the Envoy, right? And the old Blazers used to be about the size of my Yukon, but $50,000 for this car. And this, I believe, is a rebadged Kia. And it's like, I'm like, that's crazy. Yeah, like I said, I feel for people that are looking to buy cars. All I could say is maybe things will get better after November. If you can hold out to then.
Yeah, well, I
Because
mean, my wife can, even though we're not in the market for a car, she just for fun. It's kind of like checking house prices and see how house things.
yeah,
She checks the two local auto brokers to see what they have in inventory, and it gets to be pretty thin these days. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard for them to go and buy cars at an auction now. Yeah, it's so bad. It's bad enough that they are actually selling cars that have been in accidents and have been repaired and things like that. Things that have to be disclosed. We've never seen that before. You know, them
yeah.
doing.
And I could not believe how. It's like, if I really want to buy a car, I go to and buy a car, right? But I feel like it's like this is crazy. Like when I saw the place, I go, 50 grand. I paid a little bit more than that for my Yukon, and that's only a couple years ago. I'm like, this is crazy. A Blazer, and I could buy the Kia version of that same car for about 34,000. And I hate to not buy American, but I think Hyundai and Kia have really improved their cars a great deal
Oh
over the
yeah,
years, and they're actually not a bad value, for the what
they
you
I think
get.
they come. I think they rate pretty highly.
Yeah,
Hey, what model Tesla does Marcus have? You know?
the Model X.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a.
So when we were leaving church on Sunday, we saw Gene and Martha leave church, and we had first time we've ever seen Gene. But apparently he's recently bought a Tesla. I think he's got a
Oh,
Model S. It's like the big sedan.
yeah. Oh, nice. So did he get rid of his convertible, the Honda convertible he used to have?
Probably
Yeah.
may have
And
given it to one of his kids. Who knows?
yeah, I know Martha's got a big Yukon like I do. And Yukons are great first. I'm going to be taking the Yukon to Ocean City. But yeah, a friend of mine suggested, he goes, why don't you just buy a Honda Accord or a Civic, if you just want it as a daily driver? And oh wow,
Hey,
that's a really good that the
I've got a Honda lawnmower I've had for years. I love it. I used to my previous thing was used to be Craftsman. So the first lawnmower I ever used my father bought was a Toro.
yeah, that's what I've actually had really good luck with Toro lawnmowers. You know, and Honda used to have
I love this comment.
the Hondas used to
Okay,
have
Craig,
electric
do you
ignition.
like Japanese food? Do you like California rolls? Do you like teriyaki? Do you like tempura?
Yes. Do you like Godzilla films? By the way, oh, real quick
Godzilla
question.
films, Ultraman.
Yeah. By the way, you've watched Korean movies in the past, right?
Oh yeah,
Two movies. Have you ever seen War of the God Monsters and Young Gary?
no.
Both of them are like evidently War of the God Monsters is some enterprising Korean film director decided to take Ultraman stock footage and make that into a movie of Attack of the God Monsters. And Young Gary is Korea's answer to Godzilla. And it's funny how those Asian filmmakers, every one of those, there's a Cambodian illegal Ultraman movie done too. And the way they seem to just skirt the copyright laws.
There's some Ultraman like animated thing on Netflix, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah. Is that the new one now, or is that like is there
I call like Ultraman 2 or something. I can't remember. It pops
yeah.
up on my screen every once in a
I
while.
like the original Ultraman, frankly. The original one.
Look, I'm all I'm old, so I grew up with the old Ultraman, which was not animated.
So did you also watch Johnny Sacco and his robot? Was it Johnny Sacco that had the robot that looked like a pyramid or whatever? Not a pyramid, but the robot wasn't that great. It kind of just the head kind of looked like a pharaoh with
Well, when you think about like old Ultraman or anything like that, you think like Boy, were special effects really primitive.
You want to see primitive special effects? Watch Destroy All Monsters. And that was evidently Toshiro Honda spent a lot of money on that, but yet he still had to create Mothra by covering up a train. You could actually see the wheels in one of the scenes because as you see Mothra going into a train station. And it's funny, they go, Mothra's attacking a subway station, and it's above ground. That's not a subway. But yeah, so
for Craig, I mean, we've been going on for like 30 minutes, Dwight, here.
yeah. Oh yeah. So okay.
I just want to say, Craig, if you haven't seen it, there's a new. I just saw this like a week ago. There's a new small little Japanese restaurant just opened up in Flower Hill Shopping Center.
Well,
For which my wife says, of course, it's Korean owned. A lot of them are.
Yes. It's kind of yeah. It's like I have actually been to an Indian restaurant that was owned by non-Indians in Austin, Texas. And by the way, they had the best cream cheese naans I've ever, jalapeno naans I've had. They had jalapeno cream cheese between the naans, really good.
Wow,
But
that's interesting.
yeah, and that will be my final thought on that. Also, I've got a great fundraiser with Ellen Sabri, May 11th. DwightForMoco.com. More details there. Thank you, everyone. See everyone next week.
All right, goodbye.
Goodbye.